everyone, welcome back. So until today, we've been mostly focused on our annual goals. And sure, you can apply a lot of the same concepts to goals at other time frames, but let's start figuring out how to break our goals down into actionable tasks. So for many, the next logical step down from an annual view is the quarterly time frame. So 3 months may seem like a long time frame, and it can be. It can be hard to figure out what you can get done in 3 months, especially if you haven't been doing a lot with goal setting recently, or ever. But the good news is that you can get a lot done in 3 months. So the first thing I would do when we're getting ready to break our annual goals down into quarterly goals is to brainstorm the major things you need to do to accomplish your goal. In my last video, I asked for some goals and large projects that you're working on yourselves, and so I picked a few of the ones that I received. So the first one is opening a digital shop, creating a short workshop for students, and a variety of home improvement tasks. So painting garage doors and frames, sanding and painting kitchen cabinets, refinishing the kitchen tabletop, removing the entryway staircase carpeting and painting the risers, replacing overhead light fixtures, and more. So let's take each of these, and what we're looking for is 3-month sized projects. So remember, we want to be generous in our estimation. However, if you have a to-do idea or something that's a piece of that larger project, go ahead and write it down, because we might as well capture it since we're going to need to remember it later anyway. So the first one we're going to look at is opening a digital shop. I went ahead so you wouldn't have to watch me write all of these down and type them out for you so we could kind of look at them together. So the 3 major projects I could see for opening a digital shop are deciding on a sales platform, designing your digital items and preparing them for sale, and then launching and marketing your digital shop. So just to give an idea of what I would think would go inside of each of those 3 buckets, for deciding on your sales platform, you're going to want to research what's available, look at the pricing, match what you need now and potentially into the future with what's available. You have a couple of options. It can be hosted for you, or you could do something that's self-hosted, which means you need a website, and then from there, then you'd have to decide where to host it and who will design it. Inside of the designing your digital items bucket, you'll want to create listing images, write product descriptions, decide how you're handling inventory, meaning are you listing limited amounts? Are you numbering your inventory to keep track of what you have? Creating the downloadable files, writing instructions for people who may not be familiar with what to do with them or how to handle the files. And then inside the launching and marketing section, you'll want to decide on your marketing plan. It can be simple or not. You'll want to decide if you want to be running any sales, and then also deciding whether you want to be posting information to social media. So there's your example. Obviously, each one of these would be a quarter-long project. The things inside of there are decisions you'd need to make, and those would all be what would take place inside those 3-month chunks. All right. Next example was creating a short workshop for students. So the first section would be writing or outlining your workshop. Then there's the section of deciding on a delivery platform or location, and then how you're going to market and deliver your workshop. So we'll talk a little bit later about order and prioritizing, but just thinking in general terms now of what you would need to do. Obviously, when you're writing or outlining your workshop, you're going to want to figure out what your main takeaway points are, what you want your students to learn. If you're using slides, you want to create those. You want to create any handouts or deliverables that you want to give them. And then if you want to do any sorts of activities or opportunities for interaction, you would put those in there too. For a delivery platform or location, there's a couple of different options here. You could do something online. There's a bunch of different platforms for that. So are you doing something with a webinar? Are you wanting them to interact and upload items? Do you want it to be kind of a bulletin board style where there's discussion? Do you even have a choice of the platform you're using? Because sometimes it's provided for you. If you're going to be doing it in person, you're going to want to look for a location that meets your needs. So do you need to have a projector, a screen, a whiteboard? Do you need kind of like a stadium seating style with a bunch of chairs, or do you need tables that kind of help your students work together? And then under the marketing and delivery section, how will you let people know about your workshop and how you're going to handle signups? And then do you want to have any sort of follow-up or feedback? So there's some examples there. And then the third was a large home improvement project. I've been through several of these, I'm familiar with them. So the first thing you're going to want to do, especially if you haven't even started on any of this before, is probably to walk through your house and make a master list of everything you want to get done. Probably best to separate that out by room, just so you kind of have an idea of what you need to do where. And then when you look at that list, probably the next section is figuring out what you know how to do yourself, what you want to learn how to do, and whether something might be better left to a professional. So I listed some questions to ask here. Some other things you may need to think about is for whatever it is you're wanting to do you need a permit from the city? Do you have to have special permission from like a homeowners association? So maybe if you're wanting to paint the outside of your house, sometimes there's limitations on colors. And then also, we all know that there is so many options out there for different fixtures and furnishings. So if you're replacing carpet, what kind of carpet do you want? You can choose different paint and stain brands and colors, what lights and or plumbing fixtures. Like, there's so many choices. It's kind of insane. And then the last section would be basically purchasing the supplies and scheduling out the projects and just kind of getting it all done. So once you have them written down, so we have our 3 different projects here. Let me zoom out a little bit. I'll cut some of it off, but we've been through it. So once you have them written down, you'll want to prioritize and decide what to work on first. So sometimes it's obvious because there's a logical time frame for your goal. For example, the opening a digital shop. Obviously, you need to know what sales platform you're going to be using before you go through all the trouble of creating like listing images and things like that, because you need to know exactly what it is you need in order to list an item. For the workshop, also, there's kind of a general flow. Before you deliver it, you need to have whatever your workshop is going to be and where or how you're going to deliver it. However, there may be parts that could affect the other, so you may want to think them through a bit before prioritizing. So for example, with the workshop, if it's online and the platform is being provided for you, there may be features that aren't included that affect how you teach the workshop. So it might be better to figure out what you'll use to teach before you get too far into designing the workshop. On the other hand, if you get to choose, you may want to design the workshop first so you know what features you need before you start looking for a platform to offer it on. And other times it will be up to you. What part of it is bugging you the most, whether something needs to be done a certain time of the year because of the weather, or what you can afford to do, in this case of the home improvement example. You would probably find trying to paint the exterior of your house during the rainy season, or stripping paint when it's really cold, incredibly frustrating, so you would want to do those when it makes the most sense. What we're hoping to end up with is an idea of what quarters we plan to tackle certain parts of our goal. Now, the examples I've given so far are more project-type goals. Let's talk about iterative goals. So one of these is kind of from my set of goals, and then this one is just a sample one that I pulled out because I hear it quite a bit. So an iterative goal of improving my health could start with overhauling my eating habits. That would probably be something I'd want to focus on for a quarter. So it might start with clearing out and finishing up food that doesn't fit how I want to eat from now on. And I would probably want to look at starting some habits. So first habit might be eating more fresh vegetables. So maybe I kind of break that down by month. First month, 1 fresh vegetable a day or 1 meal per day. Month 2, 2 per day. Month 3, 3 per day. I could have a habit of eating at least 1 meal at home each day that meets my healthy eating habits. I could have a habit of pre-cooking or preparing parts of my meals in the weekend to make cooking easier and faster during the week. Or I might look at joining a menu or meal program that supports the healthy eating habits I am developing. The next quarter, I might want to focus on improving my physical abilities. So choosing a physical activity I enjoy, so hiking, running, working out at the gym. Maybe I want to look into an accountability partner, so whether that's a friend, a paid personal trainer, or something like that. Maybe I want to make an appointment in my schedule to work out and keep it. Maybe I want to experiment with best times of the day to work out. Maybe I want to discover my why, and then remembering that why will encourage me not to give up. All right, so the second one is improving your financial situation. Here are some potential things that you might do. Some of these probably would take a quarter or most of a quarter. So you might start by evaluating your current financial situation. So that might be checking your credit score and report, logging your current spending, reviewing all your debt, amount owed, interest rate, due dates, when loans with a timeline are due to be paid off. So if you have like a car loan that's a 5-year loan, looking to see kind of when that's supposed to end. Creating a budget and making needed changes, creating a plan to pay off debt, taking financial or investing courses, or researching and starting a retirement plan. So those are all things that could potentially be quarter-long projects. It depends on how involved you're getting with them. Sometimes you can complete them quicker. And if that's the case, I would group them together. So maybe you might say this first two here, creating a budget, making needed changes, and evaluating your current financial situation, maybe that's lumped together in creating a budget. So you want to figure out where you're starting, and then you want to figure out kind of what your plan is. So those are those ideas. Hopefully this gets you thinking about how you can start breaking your goals down. If you have problems thinking more than a 30-day time span, consider reviewing what you think you can get done in 30 days and then theming them together. So we'll talk about breaking quarterly projects into monthly ones next. I think of all of them, the quarterly breakdown is probably the one you might be able to get away with skipping. But I do find it helpful to have a general idea of what I'm working towards that quarter. And some goals lend themselves to a 3-month span of working on them, especially if you're establishing habits that are new or that you've not had luck with before. The extra time spent working on them gives them more time to become ingrained. And I always think that that's probably the hardest part of any habit, in making sure that it's not going anywhere. So hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of the first step, breaking down your annual goals into quarterly goals. As I mentioned, sometimes there are some goals that lend themselves to it. There are others that kind of lend themselves into starting off quick and getting a bunch of things done, and then it's all about execution and executing the plan that you've set up. So there's also, always a couple different ways to handle it, but especially with these, there are definitely some quarterly breakdowns. And as I will probably keep mentioning, and I know I've mentioned before, always estimate up. Things take longer than we think that they're going to, so it's always better to give ourselves a little extra time. Sorry, I just noticed how it focused. It's always better to give ourselves a little extra time, and better to finish early than have the frustration of constantly running behind. If you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comments box. If you have any other projects that you want me to kind of work through in the next section where we're talking about quarterly into monthly goals, go ahead and leave those down below and I'll take a look at incorporating those in. I thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.